All kinds of colourful designs can be created using adjustments, in particular gradient map adjustments in Photoshop. I'm using 221, but same for 220, 219, etc. Go to the gradient tool and just create a very quick gradient background. Something like that. Any of the gradients can be used. Once you've done that, go over to the selection tools, and here I've got the elliptical marquee tool. You could also use, of course, the rectangular, and simply create a selection. Once you've done that, what you can do, you can go to the layer menu and new adjustment layer and down to gradient map. Click OK. Now you get this properties panel pops up. Properties gives black. That's the first one. Not so useful. But you can select any of the other gradients, and as soon as you do that, you can see what happens. You end up with different colours there. And you can move that gradient, that layer. It is a layer, that's all it is. You can see it over here in the layers panel. Now I'm just going to move that away now, but you can still change this gradient map. Just change property and modify it numerous times. But also what you can do, you can go up to filter and go to blur and Gaussian blur. And just blur it, maybe not that much, but maybe about 40 or so. And now you can still move it around, and now you've still got that colourful design being created. But what you can also do is it's a layer. You can duplicate layers. So you can just go to layer and duplicate layer. Click OK. And as soon as you do that, you can see you get another colour effect appear. And of course you can also just go over here to the properties and change this. So here's the properties here. You don't have to have the same, and you can just change it to something else. The other one is still the same, that hasn't been changed. So you can just run through literally thousands and different colourful effects can be created simply just by changing a few properties here. Okay, move that away. Now I've got two layers here. Well, what I can also do, I can go up to there, I can just change the blending modes as well. Maybe go for difference or linear light. But I'm just going to stick with normal at the moment. But also I can resize the design, so I don't have to keep it the same. So I can just move it around. I can rotate it. Now, obviously it's a circle design, not so useful rotating that. But again, hold down the Alt or Option key and you can duplicate it again. Hold it down again, so you can see what happens. You end up with 4, 5, 10 whole heaps of layers. And they can all have different gradient maps. Perfectly reasonable. Again, just go over here and just, I want a different one. So you can change it, just run through different gradient maps. Whole range of different designs can be just generated very quickly. But what you can also do, instead of just using circle, you can always go and apply effects as well, not just Gaussian blur. So you can just go down, say to distort, and maybe go for twirl. Wave is always a good one. Now I would go for liquify, but liquify for some weird reason goes very slow on my machine. Not certain why. However, you can just change that and you can see what happens. You can see the design there just change. Now it's not the world's biggest preview. I wish they would increase the previews for these things. It's been like that for countless versions. But you can see what happens. You can just change it and you can modify different settings. But I'm just going to go with that. Click OK. And you can see now what you've got a different design there. But that can be moved around as well. And again, what you can do, hold down the Alt or Option key and you can create multiple copies of that as well. Again, also you can rotate it. Press return. And you can change again. So go for another. Just keep just trying them out. Now you don't have to use the same blending mode. You can again go to normal, maybe go for difference. Or run through and think, well, you know what, that one works well. And again, hold down the Alt or Option key and create another one. You can literally create thousands of colour designs. Now, at the same time, with all this, you've still got the underlying design here. Still exactly the same, hasn't been changed at all. All these things can be, also what you can do, you can select them all. So you select every single one of those and you can just go to layer and you can group them. Unfortunately, you can't turn them into a smart object. If you go to smart object, it will fail. Well, it won't fail, it just doesn't do anything. It's no use. So group layers. But it would be nice if you could sort of group them so you could move them around. Because what happens is when you try and move all of them, it doesn't always work so well. Sometimes it just suddenly doesn't. It just goes and selects that, which is not so convenient. Be nice if you can move. But you can select them all and move them as a group. So you can select all of those. But sometimes it will have a tendency just to suddenly decide, you know what, I'm just going to use one layer only. I'm just going to ignore it. But you can see now, you can move it around. And again, once you've done that, you can, of course, rotate it. And what you can do other effects as well. Now, this is another problem. So just go to Layer and there's no warp there. But if you just select, say, one of these, I'm just going to go for a circle. Just go for the circle. You can always use Edit and Transform and Warp. You can't do it if you've got multiple shapes, which is a pity. Adjustment layers, I should say. So you can actually warp this design and create all kinds of weird and wonderful colour effects simply just by moving this way. Though it does create, and if you're not careful, you can see what happens, creates a sort of jarring, a jagged effect, which I'm not certain why that does that. But it's still, and sometimes it will just beep. It will just say, no, not going to do it, not going to move. You can still create all kinds of different designs. And again, you can still hold down the Alt or Option key and duplicate that design. And again, change the blending modes, run through them, darken, and so on. Literally billions and billions of colour designs can be created. But you've still got this underlying design. Now, I haven't even touched that yet. So I'm just going to quickly go now back to the gradient tool, would help. Not the rectangle, but you can always use a rectangle. You can always create anything that's underneath this will be modified. So if I actually use a type or shape or an image, they will all be modified by these adjustment layers above. And you'll get all kinds of different colour effects simply by that. But again, say you can just go and apply, see a different gradient, and you get this effect like this. Sort of like a layer style. And you can also use layer styles. So layer styles are great as well. So you've got this design. I'm just going to go for one of them. But what you can do, you can go to Layer and you can go to Layer Style. And you can say, well, you know what, I want a bevel. I know that sounds weird, but you can put bevels on adjustment layers as well. And also you can put drop shadow, though not always a great effect. Does create a bit slight, but it can be useful for some effects. Also contours and so on and so on. But you can just go to Bevel and Emboss, move this around, change the glass contour and so on. You can see what happens. You end up with a variety of different effects there. And again, you can still move it. You can still go over it and move it. Now, sometimes you'll end up selecting the wrong one. And that does happen. But you can also move them around. Say, what do I do if I can't select it? Best way is just to go and deselect them. Not brilliant, but it does get around that problem of being able to select the one that you want. And you can always bring them back later. So you've got that design and you can always hold down the Alt or Option key and you can see what happens then. You can duplicate the design and create designs like that. And you can obviously resize that and then duplicate that design. Press Return, make certain you can select it and you can see the effect there. And again, all these can be changed. So again, you can double click there, you can just change the colours, modify that and you can see the effect there. So a variety of different designs can be created, and that still uses the underlying design as well. So let's bring all those back again. You can see then I've got them all active again, and you've got quite extreme colourful design, all basically from the same gradient. Just down there, just a very basic gradient. But of course you can go and modify that. So I've just this background layer. You can always go to Filters, and I can just go and maybe blur it, maybe distort that one. Just use the same sort of way that I used before. So you've got a design there, maybe create that. And you can see what happens then. I've just modified that underlying design. All the adjustment lines, it just reflects that. And you can create some lovely, weird sort of designs, surreal designs like that very quickly, simply by using this effect. Now, once you've done all that, you don't have to stop there. You can actually go and layer and flatten, or if you want. Now, you'll notice in the corner here, I've got version history. I love version history, and I will promote version history a lot. And one of the things you can do, you can go to File, and you'll see version history. Version history is great because you can save all these designs, and you can go back to them at any point. So what you can do, just go to save, and obviously this, because I've got this as a version history, I can save this. So this is just off to the cloud. It's gone to the cloud. So now what happens, you get a version history here. So I can go back and forth. If I just change my mind, I want that one again. I've got that one. I can keep going backwards and forwards. And this could be like, well, you have to mark them. You can mark them as you want to keep them. So a little marker there. But means that in 2 months' time or 3 months' time, you can go back and think, you know what, I want that design. But I want to tweak it slightly. So I can. But now I'm just going to flatten this image. And again, you've still got the layers if you want to. You can always go back to them because you've got this version history, which is super useful. But now I've got this design here. What I can do exactly the same as before. Now you don't have to create I'm just going to create an elliptical, but you don't have to. You can always hold down the shift key. And as soon as you see that, you get a little plus. So what happens? You can create all kinds of different shapes, not just a circle. Obviously, you could use other selection tools as well, perfectly reasonable, but you can create a whole range of different selections. And again, what you can do, you've got layer, and then you go down to new adjustment layer, and again, you can just go down to gradient map. And it'll go back to the default one, it always does. There's nothing unusual there. Defaults, I love defaults. Doesn't use the last one you used, but you can just simply go and select that again, or any of these designs. Sometimes it looks garish, sometimes it looks great. And again, always what you can do is you've got that design, you can always modify that. Again, just select that little mask there. Just go to the layers, select it, and then of course you can just go, well, you know what, I'm going to blur it. So Gaussian blur, I'm just going to blur that mask. So just a little blur, or maybe again, just distort it. So again, go to distort, wave, maybe not that much, but you can just change it. There's a whole variety, obviously, of designs. Number of generators, probably best to keep fairly low, otherwise it just goes completely extreme. But say you got like that, something that just jumps, just want just two. So just two, say, click OK, and you've got a slightly different, obviously, there. And again, what you can do, you can hold down the Alt Option key. It's just a layer, just a standard layer, and you can duplicate that design and duplicate it again. And again, you can go over here and you can just change gradient map. I don't want that one, I want this one. And you can go through, run through, and create all kinds of designs. And you can rotate it, warp it, go over to edit, transform, and warp, and just warp the design and create all kinds of different colourful adjustment, and obviously very unusual designs like this. And again, you've got blending modes and much more to run through. So literally thousands and thousands of different designs can be created from basically one background layer. And again, which can be still altered. So you can always still go and apply a gradient to it. Maybe go to the blending modes and set it to difference. Apply it a couple of times, and then maybe go to filters and let's just go for blur again, or Gaussian blur, and so on and so on. Also, what you can do, once you're happy with everything, just flatten it. My favourite filter, I love this filter, it's always favourite. Now I've flattened everything, doesn't matter, I can always go back. I've got the version history. So what I can do, filter and go to stylize and down to oil paint. With oil paint, I can just apply oil paint a few times. Filter, oil paint, and then again, go to adjustments and levels, I think that the oil paint always seems to make it slightly darker, but you can just tweak the colour there with the levels. I love levels. And there you got it. Very quick, weird and wonderful design using adjustment layers, using the gradient map adjustment layers, and also using obviously combinations of layers, etc., filters, and much more, as well as the version history to bring things back if you suddenly decide, you know what, I don't want that in the end. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. A like or dislike, always appreciated. Thank you much.